The Final Fantasy series is near and dear to all our hearts and features some of the most iconic characters of all time. But what's the point of having 4 Warriors of Light if there's no one around to give them a hard time? So, we're counting down our absolute best Final Fantasy bosses of all time. And it should go without saying, but full spoilers ahead. Ultros is a recurring joke character beloved for his comical overconfidence. With a cool design and combat prowess of a flaccid noodle, Ultros is a perfect example of Final Fantasy's tonal range, from dark and serious to weird and silly. His continued presence across multiple games and a movie elevated him from bizarre nuisance to a welcome and familiar, if not strange friend. The enormous Adamantis, or is it Adamantoise, is a series regular that gets a Jurassic Park-style reveal early on in Final Fantasy XV. This initial reveal plants a Chekhov's gun-style tease that pays off should the player be strong enough to take on the challenge, and the time. Because without using the game-breakingly easy Ring of Lucy accessory, the fight against the Adamantis can take around 2 hours to complete, which makes sense since you're basically fighting a mountain. Seymour Flux is the penultimate incarnation of Final Fantasy X's nihilistic villain, and one of the hardest mandatory bosses in the entire game. He possesses a variety of attacks that range from devastating to tricky. Further, he's able to neutralize your most powerful allies. You want to summon an Aeon? He'll just kill them before they can deal little more than a single attack. This complex, against all odds battle perfectly marks the stakes of the story, signaling that Yuna's fight is closing in on its difficult finale.
Your hope ends here! And your meaningless insistence with it!
You could suplex the train, lol! Okay, now that that's out of the way, the Phantom Train sequence in Final Fantasy VI was a mark of the series' first real foray into tragedy. As Cyan journeys from train car to train car, he's unknowingly bypassing the souls of his subjects who recently died at the hands of Kefka's river poisoning. This dungeon culminates at the engine, forcing Cyan, Sabin, and Shadow to simultaneously run from the train while also fighting it. It's only after the fight does Cyan witness his wife and son board the train to depart for the afterlife. Emmett Selk founded the almighty Garlean Empire that brought war and destruction to the region of Eorzea. The Garlean Empire was always the main antagonist throughout Final Fantasy XIV, but Emmett Selk really takes the spotlight in the Shadowbringers expansion. Here he reveals his true goal of resurrecting his ancient people by sacrificing the present worlds, or shards, into one world.
I will bring back our brethren, our friends, our loved ones. The world belongs to us, and us alone.
Gilgamesh appears as a boss 6 times throughout Final Fantasy V. That's 6 opportunities to fight the coolest character in Final Fantasy V, and maybe the series as a whole. Gilgamesh is the closest thing the Final Fantasy franchise has to a Deadpool without overindulging in that whole fourth wall breaking thing. He cares not for the evil exploits of Exdeath, but instead is focused on challenging the strongest opponents in the universe. The Emerald and Ruby weapons are lords among the optional boss fight pantheon. These bioweapon baddies aren't just the most difficult adversaries in Final Fantasy VII, they also require a daunting amount of preparation to even have the opportunity to fight. These are gruelingly long battles. Emerald weapon has 1 million HP, and Ruby has the ability to eliminate 2 members of your party permanently from the fight. So it's no wonder that beating them has been considered a gaming medal of honor for over 2 decades. As one of Final Fantasy IV's primary antagonists, Golbez uses his powerful magical abilities to work towards his goals of annihilating humanity. In a decisive battle, he paralyzes your entire party, instantly kills them one at a time with a Shadow Dragon, and then expects you to continue the battle with a fraction of your party while being barraged by high-level magic. Not exactly fair. In addition to being a powerful sorcerer, Golbez is also the master of deception, the very definition of a relentless boss. The only villain on this list that actually succeeds in executing on his master plan, Final Fantasy VI's Kefka, destroys the world and becomes God. Players are cued into Kefka's deranged nature early on when he poisons a river to effectively eliminate the nation of Doma. He's a standout among Final Fantasy villains because, for a good chunk of Final Fantasy VI, you don't even know he's the main bad guy. It's only in the second half that we're made aware of the cataclysmic threat that Kefka poses to the universe. Also, listen to that theme song. Dancing Mad does not get enough credit. A war hero driven to madness, Final Fantasy VII Sephiroth has a certain tragic appeal, but that doesn't make him any less ominous. Sephiroth haunts Cloud's journey as an enigmatic apparition, and you as the player always feel like you're one step behind. And I would argue his theme song, One Winged Angel, is the Final Fantasy song. I would argue probably more than the prelude at this point. Powerful, terrifying, and ethereal, Sephiroth is everything you think of when you think Last Boss. Okay, let's be honest, this list isn't perfect. I know I personally argue to get Kefka at number 1, but that's just me. Who would you add? Who would you lose? We want to know down in the comments. And while you're at it, find out why Final Fantasy is the biggest RPG series of all time. And for all things Final Fantasy, be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you like to watch IGN.